Well, it's day 4 of the sequester as the hysteria starts to die down and the $85 billion in automatic spending cuts start to kick in. Is there political will out there to find a compromise in this last part of the non-election year? Joining me now, Republican Congresswoman and a Senate candidate from the state of West Virginia, Shelley Capito. Congresswoman, good morning to you.
Good morning, Chuck. Thank you.
I want to ask you about the sequester impact on West Virginia, the good, the bad, the ugly. What can you tell me?
Well, I was there over the weekend, as I am every weekend, and a lot of people saying, hang tough. This is the time to challenge the will of this country to cut spending, to move us in a better fiscal direction, to grab hold of the debt and deficit. There is concern, however. Certainly I have concern about the education issue because we have a lot of Title I schools, but I think we can make adjustments. I think there is a will to make those adjustments here in the next several weeks, and I certainly am going to join in that effort.
Well, okay, explain that will. Does the will include something where you would see more of a grand compromise? You know, for instance, could you support a large compromise that included some closing of tax loopholes that some would charge or tax increases, but included long-term changes in entitlements that the president is claiming he'll agree to?
I don't see us getting there in the next 3 weeks. I think that we, in the short term, we're going to make adjustments this week to give the Department of Defense and the VA the ability to move around and make those cuts in the places where they feel they can. I think in the long term, certainly, we want tax reform. H.R. 1 is all about tax reform that Dave Camp's been working on in his committee. And those will close those loopholes, make it more fair. We've got to do that, and I certainly want to join with that, and also with the entitlement issue. I haven't seen a real effort from the administration to say, let's preserve this for future generations.
Well, I want to go back to this issue of that long term. If tax reform produces new revenue, which is always the Washington code word for new taxes, new tax revenue that comes into the federal government, are you okay with seeing some of that money used not to only lower the tax rates, but maybe some of that money used as part of the grand bargain, if you will, that maybe included so that some spending cuts weren't as harsh as some people want them to be?
What I'd like to see, well, you know, when we see the figures, when we see where this goes, lowering the rates certainly is something that I'm in favor of and have voted for several times. At the same time, I'd like to see us dedicate some of that money to debt reduction and in the long term. But, we still have the big elephant, I like to say elephant, in the room, the entitlement issues, because if we don't start reforming these, the next generation, it's not going to be there. And I think that's a real red flag for all of us.
West Virginia is a state that, if you're going to rank states about, money that they send to Washington versus money that they receive from Washington, West Virginia is one of these states that always ranks pretty high up on getting money from Washington. How important is federal spending to West Virginia's economy?
Well, I mean, I think you've said it there. It is very important. But it also, we're a state of great families and communities who want to see opportunities for our children and our grandchildren. And I think that we realize that when you have one hand tied behind your back because you've overspent and your economic force is not with you, that's not an advantageous place for a state like West Virginia that does have a lot of federal dollars coming in. So I think we're willing to tighten our belt. In West Virginia, we have some of the highest home ownership in the entire country. Why is that? Because we're steady on our bills. We know how to manage our budgets. That's what they expect from Washington.
Now, you've supported some of this federal spending, and it's gotten some criticism from you from some of the national conservative groups who believe that you've been too supportive of federal spending. What do you say to a Club for Growth when the day you announced your candidacy, you didn't get attacked by Democrats first, you got attacked by conservatives first? Club for Growth put out this statement that it said the problem is that Congresswoman Capito's record looks a whole lot like the establishment candidates who lost this year, but they've really been critical because you've supported federal spending that comes to West Virginia. What do you say to them?
Well, I say to them, I live in a state in West Virginia, and my first loyalties and my first priorities are to the people of the state of West Virginia. And one of the votes that they point out in that is the Children's Health Insurance Program. I live in a state where there are a lot of children who are living in poverty, whose parents can't afford insurance for one reason or another, unfortunately. And we know that their path to success and opportunity is better health. So I'm going to support the Children's Health Insurance Program. This is a history I've had since I was in the state legislature. And the way I would say to national groups is I didn't come to Congress to be rated by a national group. I came to Congress to help the people that I serve. And I'm going to keep doing that. So, it's all the political silly season.
Sure.
I'm thinking, I must be doing something right if everybody's attacking me.
Well, you have now the counterbalance to Club for Growth and some of these economic conservative groups. You have a Karl Rove who's trying to make American Crossroads and try to start a new group that would help what he calls more electable candidates for states. So in this case, would be more supportive of your candidacy. Are you glad that there are people like Karl Rove out there trying to do that for a candidacy potentially like yours?
I think what we have to look at is what's at stake here, and that's control of the United States Senate. And I think that it's extremely important in the framework of this country to be able to move us in the direction I'd like to see us go, is to get control of the United States Senate. So, and West Virginia is considered one of the prime opportunities. I'm glad to be right there at the center of it, and I think I can be successful with it. Groups coming in or not are really less important to me than my work ethic and my ability to communicate what I think I can do and where I can go.
But do you think sometimes electability should trump ideology?
I think people want to know that you're listening, that they can trust you, that you understand their problems even though you don't agree all the time. And so electability is extremely important.
All right, Shelley Moore Capito, Republican member of Congress from West Virginia, and your father, I believe, was governor
Yes,
back in the day of West Virginia, one of the first Republicans to win statewide office back in the day. Anyway, thanks for coming on. Well, former Governor Jeb Bush planted the flag in the 2016 GOP presidential field Monday, saying he'll make a decision on a potential bid sometime in the future. So Republicans found their version of Hillary Clinton. Let's bring in our Tuesday Gaggle, editor-at-large for Time Magazine, Nancy.